What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. Well, you guys can see we're in the living room today, so it's gonna be a little something different. It's from the heart. I have these little heart-to-hearts with you guys in the living room. So the subject today, I think, is something that really needs to be talked about. Not many people talk about it, and I think that most people struggle with it in general, and that is when it's time to move on. When it's time to leave something in the past and move on to the next chapter of your life, or you need to stop doing the thing that you really enjoy doing. Like, let's say you have 2 herniated discs and you love playing golf. There's gonna come a point where you can no longer play golf. And you need to know when that is before you wind up really seriously hurting yourself, you know? We look at people like Ronnie Coleman right now, and obviously Ronnie didn't know when to say when. Now, I'm not saying he should never train with weights again, but Ronnie, he has a back surgery, he's all fucked up, then he goes and tries to train the same way. Now, he's not training as heavy, but he's doing like the same splits with the same exercises, like things he shouldn't be doing, rather than like Dorian Yates, somebody who gets it. He left bodybuilding behind, and now he does a lot of yoga, which that's his thing. He actually suggested yoga to me, which I thought was crazy at the time, but now I understand a little better because we're like 4 years later. Then I had that conversation with him. 4 years later, I understand a lot more. And he now challenges himself with this bike thing that he has. He has a mountain bike, and he goes up this mountain near his house. And I guess apparently it's pretty hardcore to get to the top. So he challenges himself like that. But he knew when to say when, right? And me, myself, I didn't necessarily know when to say when. Now, I'm going to explain to you guys right now what that eye-opening thing was. I don't know. Of course, you guys could probably tell I look different. I've slimmed down a lot. I'm 196 pounds right now. I still maintain my muscularity and stuff, but I don't feel the need to be big anymore. I don't even want to take my testosterone replacement, to be totally honest with you. Like, I wish I didn't even have to take a shot of that every week. But my good friend, Rich Piana. Rich was somebody that I always held to the standard. Rich was the standard. So I would say stuff like, well, I'm 230, 240, and I'm 40 years old. But Rich is 290 and he's 46. So if Rich is okay, then fuck, I'm good. Because he's pushing the envelope and he's still okay, right? So I'd use him as the standard, is where the bar is set, he'd be the bar, right? And I'd be thinking to myself, like, man, I used to take like 1,000 milligrams of test back in the day. Like, I wonder if that had any effect on my heart, my body. I'd be like, well, Rich is taking fucking 5,000 milligrams right now at 45 years old, and he's fine. So if he's okay, then I'm definitely in the clear. You know what I mean? Like, I would say shit like that. I literally used him as the measuring stick, right? And then all of a sudden, Rich passes away. And it turns into the person that you're comparing yourself with. I now compare myself to who? Nobody, right? I'm like, shit, I don't know who to kind of turn to and say, well, if this person's okay, then I'm going to be okay. Like, that person wasn't there anymore after Rich died. It really was an eye-opener, right? So I said, shit, the guy that I always thought would be okay was okay until he wasn't okay. What if that's the same shit with me? I abused my body with the opiates and stuff when I was younger, the steroids, all the stuff that I did. What if I've done the damage like already? If I keep pushing this and keeping my weight up and stuff like that, like, I could wind up just like Rich. I could wind up like Dallas McCarver. I could wind up like these guys. And part of the problem is we don't know when to give up, right? We've seen many people like Nasser El-Sambadi. He didn't know when to quit. He kept pushing his body, keeping his weight high. He died. We have people like Curtis Leafler, if you guys remember him. We have people like Greg Kovacs. You name it, person after person that they were after a certain age and they kept pushing the drugs. They kept trying to be big because they identified with being a big bodybuilder, and that's all that they really were. They weren't really truly a good human being or a human being at all. They were just a bodybuilder, and they identified with that. They can't give that up, and they're dead, right? And I've seen time after time people that were older that didn't know when to say when and to move on, right? So that's really where it started to change for me. When Rich passed away, I really started to say, it's time to move on. It's time to step back from this. Even Rich himself was trying to slim down and wanted to slim down because he knew the effects of what he was doing was going to catch up to him, and it did. It was just too little, too late. So after Rich died, I really took a step back and said, I need to revamp some shit about myself. All right, now bottom line is I don't need to be eating every fucking 2 hours, consuming all these fucking calories, putting all kinds of stress on my body, and doing these hard workouts and stuff that I was doing, right? Well, again, not just with Rich's passing. Of course, he had passed away, but I still didn't know when to say when with the training, right? The drugs are in the past, right? I figured eating all this food and stuff to try to stay big, that's in the past. I'm gonna give my body a break, no more drugs, no more lots of food. But I still felt like I had something to prove to myself training-wise after all this time. So at 40-something years old, it's been about 2 years, I think, like this week, that I entered the gym and I tried to go back and bench press like I used to back in the day. Now, back in the day, I had over 450 bench press. It was just a common thing. 450 for 2 was just about every week, right? Hit 495 for 1. this is what I did when I was younger, but all of my friends did that too. We just benched all the time. It was like a very common thing where I came from. Everybody benched over 400. And after I tore my rotator cuff from my bicep tendon, my first bicep tendon injury was actually in wrestling. A lot of people don't know that. They think that my injuries have occurred usually through bodybuilding and abusing my body there. It actually wasn't. It was through pro wrestling. I actually got slammed in a match from someone who was actually a new wrestler. And I was calling the match, and this individual called for a handstand suplex, which is basically you hold the guy up in the air, and as he's upside down, the blood is rushing to his head. It's supposed to be like this big dramatic thing, right? Well, I knew that at the time I was 250 pounds. This guy was like 180 pounds. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, if you can hold me up there, fine. I was like, but I'm uncomfortable with it because we've never tried it before. I just would really not like to do that spot. And middle of the match, he calls for it. I was like, fuck. I could have blocked it, but I was like, all right, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. So he brought me up, and when he brought me up and we came down, I came down, my arm was around his head, this side. And as I came down, it pulled, and I felt a pop right through like the top of my bicep tendon where my shoulder inserts, where the bicep inserts into the shoulder. And that's exactly what happened. I tore that tendon. It was a partial tear. It calcified. I had to have massage therapy and ultrasound, all that stuff to break up the calcification in there. And it was extremely painful, and that was my first injury. It never fully healed right. So fast forward, I retire from pro wrestling because I now wind up getting opiate addiction from pro wrestling. And I wind up tearing my rotator cuff on the same side because that side is weakened, right? So that should have been telling me right there, like, your body's not recovering like it used to. There's something different. It's time to move on. You can't do the things you used to do. Now, I moved on from wrestling, which was probably a smart move. But back into the bodybuilding things, you shift gears, and now you're trying to push yourself again. And now I'm going, oh, well, I can get back to benching 400 at only like 195 pounds, which is way more impressive than when I was 250. And I have the new business. I have GFD Labs going. I have new business and stuff. This would be good for business. Everybody can follow it. It would be a great thing. Everybody can follow along. It'd be awesome. And my body let me know, like, look, that's not the plan. I ripped my pec, tore the pec directly off the bone. The pec minor is directly off the bone. The tendon's still attached. Surgery wasn't an option. And now I live with this very unstable shoulder joint that if I go to press anything more than like 30, 40 pounds overhead, that joint feels like it's going to rip right out. The stability is just gone. You don't realize how much something like a pec minor stabilizes your joint, just like you don't realize how much, like, you know, a back muscle affects your legs, like when you walk and stuff, you know, or any muscle when you pull it, like when you're moving around just bodily motions, you don't realize that all these muscles are pulling and moving and contracting at the same time. They work together. It's not isolated, you know, when you're out of the gym, it's not isolated. And I really had to step back again and say, okay, you know, this is over for me. Training like this is over for me. Now, I could have saved myself that pain, that aggravation, and that injury had I wrapped my head around that earlier, but I couldn't. And then I had to really sit back and think, why couldn't I, right? So many of you right now, I know that there's a lot of people that watch these videos that I make, 40 years old, 30 years old, you know, in your mid-30s, 40s, you know, some of the young guys are still around, but a lot of the younger guys have kind of gone out to other YouTube channels and stuff. So there's a lot of you guys that are around my age that are possibly going through this shit. And you look at it and you say, okay, I'm getting injured all the time now. Like, my body's just breaking down. I don't want to use the drugs due to the risk that's coming up, you know, with the age that I'm at with the drugs. I have a family that I want to take care of. I don't want to, you know, harm myself and wind up missing work or whatever the case may be because I have these injuries and stuff. What do I do? Like, it's over. Like, the whole fucking thing is over. And like they say, all good things come to an end, right? Why is it so hard for us to give it up? A lot of it is ego. I'd say 99% of it is ego. So if I go out there and I train my fitness training that I do now, which keeps me walking around right now, you know, in my 190 sub pounds, and people see me doing it, they go, whatever. You know, they don't think twice about it, right? But if your ego takes over, you see them looking at you going, what the fuck's this guy doing, right? And you start thinking, well, fuck you. Like, fuck you, young kid, man. Who you fucking think you are? Do you know what I've accomplished? Then your ego starts to take over. Then you're pushing yourself harder in the gym. I can't even listen to certain music because it helps me. It instantly makes me push myself harder while I'm training, which I don't want anymore, right? So your ego takes over, and your ego leads to bad things. Your ego leads to injuries. It leads to some insights. You know, your ego is definitely something that is a teaching instrument. It's a tool that teaches you usually bad lessons. You know, ego is not usually good lessons. It's usually bad lessons. So now you have this fight with yourself, like, well, if I don't do what I want to do, is it even worth doing, right? If I can't train the way I want to train, should I even go to the gym and train? Like, you go through all these, like, these kind of thoughts that run through your head, and you're, you know, logically you go, look, I love training, so I want to go train, you know? And then at the same time, you're like, well, if I can't train optimally, why do I even fucking bother? I used to say, if I can't progress, I just quit. That's what I used to say when I was younger, because I was, excuse me, hell-bent on getting bigger and better all the time. And if you're not doing that, what's the point of even training, right? Why not? Why even go to the gym? And over time, again, through maturity and wisdom and, you know, letting my ego go, I learned that to stay fit, to stay healthy, just to maintain what I have right now, I have to maintain it by training. So you have to shift your mindset into maintenance, which is a very hard thing to do when you've been pushing for so long. But I've been lucky enough to have people around me that have transitioned out of, you know, the bodybuilding thing. I had my friend Aaron, my wife is Aaron, but my friend Eric Eckenrode, who retired from bodybuilding, and of course he started a family. He's got like 8 kids now and a wife, and he owns the gym Eckenrode, Team Eckenrode out in Kensington. And he said that he had to actually fill the void of what he was doing with bodybuilding with boxing. He started doing boxing, and not like competitive boxing, but like boxing workouts, like something to challenge himself at. Because it's really not, you know, once your ego is aside, it's not really about feeding your ego anymore. It's about trying to be a better you. Like that's what we're doing, right? With bodybuilding, we're trying to be a better us than we were yesterday. Now, it is a very competitive thing as far as sports, but it's a competitive nature that I feel like attracts us to this sport to begin with. And that nature doesn't go away just because we can't no longer do what we used to do. So it took a little while, you know, there are even times now where I go in the gym and I train and I go, fuck, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like I shake my head and I'm going, it's just so different. And it's hard to wrap your head around that whole concept of it's over, right? It's over. It'll never be the same again. Your time has come and passed, but it's time for like a new chapter, right? And it's not an easy thing to come with because you realize you're aging. And a lot of people don't want to age, right? None of us want to get older. Like, you know, I'm going to be 45 this year. That's my mid-40s. That happened like this, like a blink of an eye. I turned, you know, my mid-40s. But I also now have a different perspective. And I'm hoping to share this with you guys and you guys can understand this. This might be able to be the key that helps you. I'm so fortunate, so lucky enough to have had the life that I had. Like, I can't even fathom the fact that how I wouldn't be so grateful for having the times that I had, the life that I had, the things that I did. Like when I became bitten by the bodybuilding bug as a teenager, all I wanted to be was a competitive bodybuilder. I gave up everything in my life. I gave up music, I gave up art, I gave up school, I gave up everything in my life I gave up so I could be a bodybuilder, right? And then I was competing, and I was like, it was one of the greatest things ever. And like, you know, you do this show and you get ready for the next show, and, you know, you make your plan, you execute it, you do your best. And, you know, at the end, there's a test. The test is getting on stage. Did you pass? Did you fail? Did you win? Did you lose? And then there's, you know, making a new plan and then executing a new plan. And, you know, you're constantly struggling through different things to try to get to the stage. And that teaches you discipline, routine. That teaches you how to overcome things. It teaches you willpower. It teaches you all these things. And in the end, I got to, you know, not only just be a competitive bodybuilder, but make it a career without actually being a competitive bodybuilder. You know, even things like the Expos that recently have completely gone to shit. Like I saw the writing on the wall last year, the year before. I was like, things are over, right? Well, there's a lot of people still trying to grasp onto those. And I don't understand why, because there are people out there right now that are spending a lot of money to try to do these Expos. And they're not getting the money back. If they're not careful, they're going to be out of business this year or next year. They have to understand that, like, when it's over, it's over. It's time to move on. The Expos were a new thing before. When it was new and it was on the rise, that was awesome, right? Everybody's in there. Everybody's getting better at it. But when it starts to decline and it's over, you have to know when to step back and say it's over. You know what I mean? You have to know when to step back and say training like that is over. And that is a harsh fucking reality. It is a kick in the dick when you fucking come to that reality that it's over. Something, anything. Doesn't matter whether it's your marriage, whether it's your training, whether it's your job. Like you might be at a job for 30 years and all of a sudden you realize this is it for me. Like it's over. Like I can't do it anymore. I need to move on. I need to, you know, broaden my horizons, whatever the case may be. You know, even when you go on vacation, I mean, something as small as that, right? We were out in Mexico. We left Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. By Wednesday, we're like, fuck, it's almost over already. Like it's over, and you have to accept the fact it's over, right? And you're going back home to go back to your normal life. So all these things come to an end, but a lot of times we don't want to give them up. It's so much fun. It's so good for the ego, right? There's so many things that are going on that make us want to keep doing what we're doing. We never want to give it up. That's human nature. We never want to give anything up like that. But there comes a point where, you know, Rich was a prime example of that, where it's going to harm you more than it's going to do you any good. And I feel like, you know, Jay Cutler has got it down pat. Kevin Levroni's got it down pat. I feel like Sean Ray has it down pat. These guys that are, you know, retiring and they downsize and they take care of themselves and they're healthier. And I feel like they really understand when it's time to walk away and do something else. You know, Sean Ray, when he walked away, he decided to jump into the media stuff, right? So he's like a media guy. You know, he does all the interviews and stuff like that. It's kind of his shtick. He does emceeing. You know, Jay, of course, he had the business all the time, but he was able to leave bodybuilding and really focus on his business even more and grow it even more and create new businesses, right? Lavroni, same thing. He retired. He's got Lavroni formulas, or Lavroni signature series, I think, believe it is now. It's worldwide. You know, Ronnie Coleman, you know, he hung around a little longer than he should have. I think maybe a year longer than he should have. He hung around and wound up doing more damage to himself. But when he stepped away, he eventually had to. He had no choice. You know, he was forced to step away. He started, you know, Ronnie Coleman supplements. That's successful. Great. You know, it's like he has something else to put his attention and energy into. But the problem is giving it up, walking away from something that you love doing, that strokes your ego and people admire you for, because it's no longer fit for you, right? And I really, you know, I look at these other guys that I just mentioned, and I don't want to say study them, but I look at them and I try to get their rationale, right? I try to get their mindset. The Rock is another perfect example, right? When football had run its course, he cut it off and walked away. He had to walk away from football, which is all he had known, right? To do the unknown, which was wrestling. He goes into wrestling. When that's over, he wants to do movies. He has to leave wrestling on top. I mean, he was still on top. He left wrestling, goes into movies, left that behind, and then has a new challenge, right? So when you're constantly challenging yourself like that and reinventing yourself, Aerosmith, the Rolling Stones, Metallica, The Rock, constant Madonna, we'll throw her in there, constantly reinventing yourself, that's how you last the test of time, right? And that's where you get the most out of your life, the most enjoyment, as you still recreate yourself time after time and become the new version of you. You now have something else that takes the place of the stuff you can no longer do. But that one thing that I did for 25 years or 30 years, nonstop, trying to get bigger, trying to get stronger, all that stuff, and it's just over, that can cause some depression. You know, I mean, you look at yourself in the mirror. You know, I had fucking almost 20-inch arms before. They're probably fucking 15 inches now. You know what I mean? I mean, they stay lean, but you have to come to terms with, this is my arm now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to have those big ass arms. I want to wear a size XL t-shirt and it's going to be tight like this. I'm not going to be wearing 2XL, 3XL anymore. You know, like, in change, you know, it facilitates change in you. And it's not like you're walking away. And again, there's another thing, like we have the Marty McFly issue that, you know, he had in the movie was, what are you, chicken? I don't know if you guys remember the Back to the Future when they call him chicken, he loses his fucking mind. Well, in our industry, in the fitness industry, if you're not training like hardcore and you're not training like a fucking animal and you're not pounding 10 meals a day and 500 grams of protein, you're a pussy. Don't be a fucking pussy. Like, you're such a fucking pussy. You're not fucking hardcore. Like, all the things that people will say about you or to you that you may have been in the past, but you no longer are now and you can't be in the future, like, those names, those sit on you too. People telling you you're a pussy because you can't fucking squat 300 pounds. I watched Jay Cutler the other day say he squatted 225 and that's a lot for him now, right? So it's like, even Jay Cutler, 4-time Mr. Olympia, he's one of the most recognizable bodybuilders of all time, right? Knows that, look, I'm not squatting 500 anymore. It's just out of my realm right now. It's not going to fucking happen. I did it before. I'm done. This is where I live now. You know, and I've talked to Jay in depth about many things, and he's just super confident in what he does because he doesn't follow the crowd. He just does his own thing and blazes his own trail. And that's a hard thing because I think a lot of us with social media, we're constantly, you know, looking at pictures of this person, following that person's life, like doing all these different things. And we feel like we have to do that too, or we're a loser. We're not hardcore. We're a bitch. We're a pussy. We're all these things, right? When in reality, nobody gives a fuck. They're not judging you. Even if somebody called you a pussy on Instagram right now, 20 minutes from now, nobody's going to fucking remember it, right? It's just a matter of your ego and what, you know, what you decide for yourself. That's the key. So hopefully this video, I know it's been kind of all over the place, but this is my thought process, and I know it's not talked about a lot. And I really would like to open up some more conversations about stuff like this because there's a lot of people around my age, a little bit younger, that are going through this right now, and they're trying to question whether or not they should push the envelope. I mean, I had one friend, rest in peace, Marco. He was about 280, about 6'3", 280. He was big. He reminded me a lot of Rich Piana. He was like that big framed guy, right? And you know, he had some issues where he wasn't really training hard or taking anything. And he finally was like, I need to get back. I got to go 300 pounds, right? And he was like in his like late 30s. And I remember having this conversation with him one day in the gym. You know, he said, man, you know, I just can't wait to get to 300. I said, how long do you think you're going to stay at 300 for? He said, what do you mean? I said, you might be 300 more pounds on Friday night when you get on the scale. When you get up Saturday morning, you're fucking 285 or 290, 298 or something like that. said, so you got to eat your way back up, right? I said, you can't maintain it because the drugs you have to take to get there, you can't maintain those drugs. So at the best, what do you have? 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks at 300 pounds before you have to start coming down. So you're going to put all that time, energy, and risk your health for 5 weeks to step on a scale and that says 300 pounds. So you can tell everybody you're 300 pounds, or that makes you secure about yourself for 300 pounds for 5 weeks, because then you're going to be coming back down. There's no way around it. And then what happens? You can't deal with it. You can't handle it. You wait to go up to 300 pounds the next time. How many times do you think your body's going to do that before it fucking gives out, right? And it was like one of those things where he was like, yeah, he's like, I never thought about it that way. He's like, fuck. He's like, I just need to, and he was fighting with slimming down, just like Piana, just like me, just like a lot of people. He was fighting with himself about slimming down or getting big again. Like, and it wasn't even an external thing, like people wanted him to be big. In his head, he wanted to be big because he felt like if he saw someone and they weren't big, they were a fucking loser. So he was judging himself based on how he judges other people. Well, a couple weeks later, I got the information that he passed away. Yeah, he was hit by a car walking on a highway in the middle of the night. They're not really sure what happened. They think he ran out of gas, was just walking and a car hit him. But he did have suicidal tendencies. He had talked about suicide plenty of times, and he had been in and out of rehabs and stuff. I mean, it was a fucking mess. And it was like the steroids in his life of what it needed to be and where it came from was like, it was changing, and it was very hard for him to handle. And I think that the last time that really set him off, and he had the episode where he freaked out and he was very, very manic, and he was not in a good place. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that he was trying to accept the fact that he couldn't be that 300-pound monster anymore. He had to be a new Marco that nobody knew, nobody met, right? He had to actually be himself. He couldn't just be that monster that walked in, not say a word. People go, oh, he's fucking huge. He didn't have to say anything. Now he had to have conversations. Now he had to show how vulnerable he was to people. Now he had to be a real person rather than this fucking monster. And then again, that was one of those things that, that was a couple of years ago. All right, sorry, we ran out of space on this thing over here, but it's time to go take Brady for a walk. You want to go for a walk? Do you have to go outside? Do you have to go for a walk and make a pee-pee? Do you have to poop? All right, buddy, you want to say bye to everybody? Say bye, everybody. Say bye, guys. Hopefully you guys get something out of this video. And it's time to go walk Brady. So I'm Bios3. This is Brady. He approves this message. And we're out. Say we're out, buddy. Tell him we're out.